Welcome back. So, in our last explainer, we really dug into the big ideas, the core principles of ethical AI. Today, we're going to roll up our sleeves and get practical. We're moving from the philosophy to the toolbox, the actual real world methods builders use to put all those ethics into practice. All right, let's jump in. And just to frame our discussion, this is part 2 of our 3-part series on the language of ethical AI, all based on a fantastic guide from Virtualization Options LLC. Today, it is all about implementation, how those big ideas we talked about actually get built into the AI systems that are, shaping our world. So that leads us to the big question for today. It's one thing to stand up and say an AI should be fair or accountable. That sounds great, right? But it's a whole different ballgame to actually build it that way. How do you turn those high-level principles into lines of code, into real-world processes and company policies? Well, the whole journey really starts at the beginning, way back in the design phase. Before a single line of code is ever written, you're making these crucial decisions that will set the ethical foundation for the entire project. This is the blueprint stage. A huge part of that blueprint is something called inclusive design. Now, this isn't about designing for some imaginary average user. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's about intentionally bringing diverse voices to the table, testing your creation with people from all kinds of backgrounds, with different abilities, to make sure the AI doesn't just work for one tiny slice of the population, but for everyone. This is how you find your blind spots before they cause real problems. Now, the other side of that design coin is privacy by design. You can think of it like this. If inclusive design is about bringing everyone in, privacy by design is about protecting them once they're there. It means you don't build a whole system and then try to, bolt on some privacy features at the very end. No way. Privacy has to be a core, non-negotiable requirement from the very first sketch on the whiteboard. Okay, so once that blueprint is set, the builders get to work. And just like any other craft, they need the right tools for the job. This next section is all about that toolbox, the actual methods and techniques you use during development to build systems that are transparent and trustworthy. The first tool you might reach for is an interpretable model. These are kind of the clear glass boxes of the AI world. Think of a simple decision tree or a basic rule-based system. Their structure is so straightforward that a person can literally look inside and see the logic, the if this, then that steps that led to a specific decision. Now, the big trade-off is that they are often less powerful than their more complicated cousins. And that brings up a massive question, doesn't it? What do you do when you really need the power of a seriously complex model, like a deep neural network? These are what we call black box models, because honestly, even the folks who build them can't fully explain the super intricate reasoning behind every single decision. So, how do you stay transparent then? Well, that's when you need a different tool from the toolbox. Post hoc explanations. You'll hear about techniques with names like Lime and SHAP. They basically act like a flashlight you can shine into that black box. Now, they don't reveal everything, but they create a simplified approximation to help explain why the model made a certain prediction. And that word approximation is key. These are incredibly useful, but they aren't the absolute final truth of how the model works. Now, whether your model is a clear glass box or a mysterious black box, you have got to document it. And one of the most important tools for that is the model card. This is a big move toward having clear, standardized documentation for every single AI model out there. And honestly, there's no better way to understand this concept than this quote. A model card is basically a nutrition label for artificial intelligence. How great is that? It's a simple, really powerful metaphor that just makes the whole idea click. Just like you'd read a food label to know what you're putting in your body, you'd read a model card to understand an AI system. So what's actually on this label? Well, it clearly states the model's intended uses. What was it built to do? It details its performance metrics, and that includes how well it performs for different groups of people. And crucially, it lists its limitations and its known weaknesses. And it flags the key ethical issues everyone should be aware of before they use it. So the builder's job isn't over once the AI is launched. Nope. In fact, some of the biggest challenges really begin once a system is deployed out in the real world. Managing AI in the wild, as they say, requires a whole new set of practices. One of the absolute biggest challenges is something called model drift. See, an AI isn't a static thing. It's trained on data from a specific moment in time. But the world? Well, the world changes. The source we're looking at gives a perfect example. A fraud detection model trained before the pandemic might suddenly start flagging all your normal post-pandemic online shopping as fraudulent. Its performance gets worse because the world has drifted away from its training data. It needs to be retrained with fresh data to catch up. So who decides when a model needs to be retrained? Who's minding the store? That's where multi-stakeholder governance comes in. The whole idea here is that no single group, not even the developers themselves, should have sole control. You need a system of checks and balances where employees, customers, regulators, and the communities actually affected by the AI all get a say. Each group sees different risks and brings a totally different and totally vital expertise to the table. This brings us to a really important principle called proportionality. It asks a simple but profound question. Just because we can use AI for something, should we? Is it necessary? Is it proportional? For example, using AI to spot tiny patterns in medical scans that a human might miss, that's absolutely proportional. The benefit is huge. But using facial recognition just to take classroom attendance, that feels really disproportionate. A simple roll call works just fine without the massive invasion of privacy. Proportionality is a critical guardrail against technological overkill.
So we've covered the design phase, the building phase, and the management phase. The final piece of this puzzle is the overarching mindset, the philosophy that connects all of these practices together and guides the builder's hand at every single stage.
And that mindset is called responsible AI. Now, this isn't just about some abstract feel-good ideal. Responsible AI is relentlessly practical. It's about taking those ethical principles and making them operational. It's about ensuring you're complying with laws and industry standards. And it's about creating measurable systems of accountability. It's the framework for proving that you're building trustworthy AI. And that really brings us to a perfect summary of this entire journey. If ethical AI is the moral compass that points us north, responsible AI is the detailed map, the 4x4 vehicle, and the rules of the road that actually get us there. One is the why, and the other is the how. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've got the blueprint, we've got the toolbox, we've got the guiding philosophy. We know how to build more ethical and responsible AI systems. The real question then becomes, what's stopping us? What are the real-world barriers, cultural, financial, organizational, that get in the way of using this incredible toolkit effectively? Definitely something to think about.